Thanks very much for staying with us. Time now for Eye on Africa with me, Georgia Cavan-Smith. Tonight, Libya's Khalifa Haftar arrives in Greece as he and his rival, Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj, gear up for the next instalment in crucial truce talk. Berlin will host the battling sides this weekend as part of international efforts to try and negotiate a political settlement to months of fatal fighting around Libya's capital, Tripoli. Also, a long time in the making, Senegal finally has criminalized rape, meaning that abusers will face tougher penalties. But for those who were attacked whilst the offence was still classed as a misdemeanour, the legislative change is a bittersweet one. And the economy versus the ecosystem. The Seychelles is struggling to balance the health of its tourism industry with the needs to look after its lush beaches, reefs, and nature reserves. We take a closer look. But first, Libyan strongman Khalifa Haftar arrived in Greece on Thursday, where he met with the Greek foreign minister. This was all ahead of a peace summit that's due to be held in Berlin this weekend, as more international effort is spent on trying to bring peace to Libya. Germany is hosting the meeting for foreign powers and Libya's warring leaders. It's aimed at bringing an end to 9 months of brutal fighting around Tripoli. Germany said that Haftar is committed to a ceasefire, despite his having left Moscow earlier this week without having signed the proposal that was mediated by Russia and Turkey. For 9 months, Haftar's forces have been besieging Tripoli in a bid to try and oust the internationally recognised government that's being led by Prime Minister Fayez al-Sarraj. It's just one dimension of the spiral of instability and violence that Libyans have suffered since the revolutionary ousting of Muammar Gaddafi in 2011. Catherine Norris-Trent tells us more.
It's very interesting if you look at the timing of this announcement, because we don't have the detail. Turkey says that they would use all of its diplomatic and military means to ensure stability to its south in Libya. Now, in terms of deploying soldiers, which they've said they are now starting to do, we don't have numbers of how many Turkish troops, what kind of troops, that kind. There have been many reports, of course. Turkey is already militarily involved in Libya. We know that for a fact. They deploy drones there. They have what they call military advisors there. They've been deploying armoured vehicles and other weapons in defiance of a UN embargo, along with other countries. But they've been supplying those to the internationally recognised Government of National Accord in Tripoli for quite some time, very much firmly on that side of Libya's civil war. There are also reports around that have been verified by various sources in Syria, in Turkey and in Libya, notably the Guardian newspaper doing work on this, that reportedly 2,000 members of the Syrian Free Army trained by Turkey are being sent to fight in Libya. So clearly this is a very complex military situation.
Look now at some news in brief. Lesotho said that its prime minister will retire soon as investigations into the murder of his ex-wife continue. Thomas Tabane's late wife, Lipolelo, was killed 2 days before he was inaugurated for a second term in 2017. 2 years before that, a court had ruled that Lipolelo was the lawful First Lady and so entitled to benefits. Police are looking for the current First Lady for questioning over Lipolelo's death. It's not clear when Tabane will step down. Thousands of supporters of former Gambian leader Yahya Jammeh marched in Banjul on Thursday, calling for his return from exile. His autocratic rule over the country lasted for 22 years before he lost the election to current leader Adama Barrow, and in 2017 fled to Equatorial Guinea. Calls for his return have risen ever since Barrow reneged on a promise to step down after 3 years. Barrow's now decided to stay on for 5. English-speaking countries in West Africa say that they are not happy with French-speaking nations from the region's decision to rename the CFA franc. Members of the West African Monetary Zone say that former French colonies have hijacked the name ECO and that the regional bloc ECOWAS had planned to adopt a single currency that was going to use the same name. The CFA franc has long been attacked as being an uncomfortable colonial hangover. It was set up by France and is backed with reserves held here in Paris. WEMZ has called for a summit to discuss the monetary naming clash. Last week, Senegalese President Macky Sall signed a decree that made rape a criminal offence. Previously, it had only been classed as a misdemeanor. The change in the law means that the punishment for rape will now be much harsher. But for too many, the change comes too late.
This building in Dakar is a refuge for women who have been abused or raped. In 2018, statistics show that 1,321 women were raped in Senegal, but in fact many other victims didn't dare go to the police. This young woman was raped by someone who knew her family very well.
To be sexually assaulted is terrible. And it's even harder when you become pregnant. I was really traumatized. I didn't want to live anymore.
In Senegal, a new law that criminalizes rape has just been passed. Until now, it was only an offence with a maximum prison sentence of 10 years. Now, rapists risk spending their whole lives in jail. This lawmaker fought hard for this new legislation.
Women said it had to stop, unanimously. We said this must cease. The president agreed. It's true there were sanctions in the penal code beforehand, but rape had to be criminalized. That's what women were asking for, and now it's done.
Rape had been categorized as an offence in Senegal for the last 55 years. Now it's a crime. Lawmakers hope this will encourage more victims to come forwards and press charges.
Now, the Seychelles have attracted a lot of visitors with their picture-perfect beaches, and they've gained a reputation as being a sought-after spot for honeymooners. But that reputation does come at a cost that pits its economic health against the health of its ecosystems. Take a look.
The Instagram-perfect beaches of the Seychelles just can't help looking like a tourism advert at all times. For many years, holidaying here was seen as a luxury afforded only to a small number. However, reflecting a global trend, this group of 115 islands off the coast of East Africa is seeing visitor numbers climb ever higher. From 2008 to 2018, the number of visitors doubled to 360,000, over 4 times the country's population.
Tourism in Seychelles in general is increasing, and that is of concern to conservationists like myself, to sustainable developers like myself, who find that maybe we're reaching a point which experts call over-tourism.
And yet tourism is a vital part of this nation's economy, accounting for more than 60% of its GDP. The key issue for the government is working out how to maintain this industry without letting it overrun the place. To preserve the status of these islands as a high-end luxury destination, the government introduced a temporary ban in 2015 on the construction of new hotels on the 3 main islands. And on further flung islands, the Seychelles practices a one island, one resort policy, all with the aim of avoiding becoming a mass tourism destination.
Development is kept to a minimum, and that it does not really destroy what we inherited. And for us to keep the waters clean, the marine environment that is teeming with fish, the attractions that are in there, and that people feel very much, that you are in an environment which is still very much intact compared to many other places.
Luxury hotels are among the biggest sources of pollution in the Seychelles. Many import their groceries from abroad and have around-the-clock dependence on oil-powered generators for electricity. This resort, on the island of Silhouette, is taking steps to reduce its environmental impact. For example, a blanket ban on the use of plastic bottles.
In 1 year, we managed to save almost around 400,000 bottles of plastic. So it was the first measure we took by starting to produce our own water, which comes from Mount Duban, our own little mountain, and eventually bottling this water and giving it to our clients complimentary.
The Seychelles Tourism Ministry says it believes the island could ultimately absorb up to around 500,000 tourists per year. Any more than that, and the worry is that the country's vast amounts of protected natural spaces could come under threat.
Well, that's it for Eye on Africa. Thanks very much for joining us. Do so again if you can. Take care.
Notre-Dame-des-Landes, a small village in the west of France that has become a symbol of environmental resistance. At the heart of the battle, the creation of an exclusion zone to prevent the building of an airport.
On s'est battu aussi contre un aéroport, mais pour une société différente, et on continue à se battre pour ça.
The handful of activists who are still on site are trying to create a mini-society that is both libertarian and anti-capitalist.
À ceux qui restent, je leur fais parfaitement confiance. Quand on les voit vivre, ils ont une capacité d'initiative dont je suis toujours admiratif.
Notre Dame des Landes revisited all this week here on France 24.
Liberté, égalité, actualité.